episode of the Ferret64 Podcast with me, your host, YemmytheFerret. Ferret64 is, of course, the one-stop shop for video game news, occurrences, first impressions, and so much more. And we got a nice slate of things to talk about today, including Age of Imprisonment and some other games that I have actually finished this past week as well, along with news like some massive delays inside of the video game landscape. And we got coming soon, which I guess you'll have to just wait and see for that one. Let's go ahead and get started, though, with what have I been playing this past week. Well, I hope everyone had a good past week of gaming. There were a couple things that came out. Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, which is the, pseudo-sequel to Age of Calamity, which is, of course, a sequel to Hyrule Warriors, which is, of course, a spin-off of The Legend of Zelda. If you don't know, Warriors games, much like the one that I talked about at the beginning of this year, so long ago with Dynasty Warriors Origins, it's pretty much a game where you hack and slash your way through tons of enemies, hundreds, thousands, perhaps even. And this spin-off here is in the Legend of Zelda universe. So you're playing with characters who are of, I would say, the kind of Tears of the Kingdom, kind of Breath of the Wild. Now, personally, I have not beaten Breath of the Wild and or played Tears of the Kingdom, but I don't know if you really need that knowledge for this game here, other than like the base knowledge of what happens in Breath of the Wild and then what happens at the beginning of Tears of the Kingdom, because you play as, you do play as a lot of characters, but the main character is Zelda, of course. She gets sent back in time to the War of Imprisonment. She actually gets sent back like a week or so or a month or so before the War of Imprisonment, but that's essentially the whole point of the game, is to tell this story in this period of the Legend of Zelda past. So you talk with like her ancestors, and you're learning about this world that you've probably explored for hundreds of hours. If you are a big Legend of Zelda fan, you've probably explored these worlds for probably about 100 hours each, right? They're pretty big worlds to explore. So you're learning more about the history of the Great Plains and what happened in this War of Imprisonment. And it starts off much like you'd expect a Warriors game to start off. Tutorial, lots of story going on. It does kind of start you with the knowledge that this is Zelda's side of the Tears of the Kingdom story. Now, I don't know if Zelda appears again in Tears of the Kingdom. That'd be a question for someone else. All I know is that Zelda and Link, they get separated in that cave when, I believe that is, Ganondorf wakes up on the that altar or whatever you want to call it. And of course, because Zelda gets put back in time, a lot of the characters you meet are not going to be ones that you have talked to before. They're probably going to be ones that you have seen or heard about through dialogue and murals. But you get to talk to them now. You get to talk to the first king of Hyrule and his wife. You get to talk to his sister. You get to interact with all the olds folk, the original inhabitants of the area. And the game doesn't really pick up. Like, I was having fun with it, don't get me wrong, I was having fun with it, but it doesn't really pick up until the war starts up. I don't know how much you want me to go into detail, but within the first couple hours of the game, Ganondorf is leading his people, and he decides, I'm going to do a tricky thing. I'm going to have my units attack the Hyrule people, and then I'm going to claim that I actually disavowed them and cast them out because that wasn't me. And then Ganondorf is like, now that I've been inside the castle for a couple of days, now I am going to take over this castle. And that is what he does. And the war starts, and all the little bogoblins spawn, and the trolls and whatnot all spawn in, and it kind of goes from there. And the gameplay itself is actually really fun in the game. I don't know how Age of Calamity played, or even the original Hyrule Warriors. I believe Hyrule Warriors, the first one, did play more so just like a regular Warriors type game. Age of Calamity, they started to do a few different things with the game. Now, once again, I don't know exactly the specifics because I didn't play those. I have Hyrule Warriors, but I never got Age of Calamity. But I do have Age of Imprisonment here, and Age of Imprisonment is canon within the Zelda universe now. So even though Age of Calamity is not a part of the core lore for Legend of Zelda, Age of Imprisonment is, which is a big distinction to make. So while you're playing through the events of Age of Imprisonment, the things that are happening in Tears of the Kingdom are happening. I want to say like in tandem, like at the same time, but because of the time change, where Zelda gets thrown back into hundreds and hundreds of years into the past, it's technically not at the same time, but it is happening, side by side, essentially. And I really like how the gameplay is structured here. You have your regular attacks, but then you also have these branching off attacks. And the Hyrule Warriors, the Warriors game, Dynasty Warriors Origins, that came out earlier this year, didn't have this variety inside of the movesets. Now, you could obviously choose different weapons and get different special moves based on those weapons, but your main attacks were kind of like the same. There wasn't really too much variety in those. Whereas with Age of Calamity here, if you press Y and then X right in a row, you have like a little combo move. And if you press Y twice and then press X, then you do a different combo move. So it's a very basic and rudimentary combo system for sure, but it does give you a lot of variety in the moves that you are using. Zelda herself has a wide range of moves that come off of this basic system, where one move is like a little spin attack, and if you level up, you can charge it and then do a spin attack. Another move is like this one where she like creates like these light bombs, and she casts them out into the group of enemies, and if enemies go near them, they explode. And then the third one that she can do is like this big wave attack that does like light damage from below in like a wave in front of her. So 3 different ways to kind of work around the tons of enemies that are around you in the game, and it does hold true to the Warriors formula. I was a bit concerned going into it because Dynasty Warriors games, they have a lot of enemies on screen. If you recall from me talking about Dynasty Warriors Origins, you were killing thousands of enemies, sometimes tens of thousands of enemies during those levels in the later acts, and I was kind of concerned, like, okay, are they going to do that same thing for Age of Imprisonment here? And they were able to. From what I can tell, they were able to pull it off so far. Now, it's obviously not as many enemies on screen as Dynasty Warriors Origins. I mean, that was like a shock and awe type thing when you zoomed out on the map. But you do still have nice clusters of enemies, sometimes ranging in the hundreds. They need to take out and capture their bases and move on. Now, because this is a bit of a spin-off of Dynasty Warriors, there are some things that have been Nintendo-ified, and of course Zelda-ified as well. Throughout completing missions, sometimes you'll be able to build a camp, which will boost your stats for that level. I thought that was a pretty good idea. There's also these like stones that you get to level up your weapons and output more damage, which is great. It costs rupees to upgrade things with the blacksmith. Also, on top of that, there's a lot of like items that you receive from doing side missions and main missions, and you use those for requests. There's a lot of different things layered on top of each other, but it all makes sense because you use the what is it called, the Shaka slate or whatever it's called, the Sheikah slate, and that instead of it being like your map for the world in the Breath of the Wild or whatever, it is now like this device that you do still have the map of the area, but it shows you it's just a map showing you what your objectives are. So instead of being able to like free roam the entirety of Hyrule, of course, it is a Dynasty game. So you're choosing missions on this map. Now, obviously, with Dynasty Warriors Origins, there was like this map that you roamed around and did missions for people, right? So this kind of harkens back to older times where you would have you have a map here. You select a side mission. You can select a main mission. You can select to help someone by giving them resources. You can do all those different things. And they did include parts of the underground in the game as well. So far, it hasn't been like super crazy. But the main thing that has happened in Hyrule itself is during the Age of Imprisonment, or the War of Imprisonment, it kind of reminds me of Mass Effect 3 and that Galaxy at War map, where the more things you do, like story missions and side missions inside of an area, the area will turn like less controlled by Reapers, so it becomes more blue. It was more for the multiplayer too. It kind of reminded me of that, where the map comes up, and now instead of it just kind of being like a greenish, bluish hue, it is covered in pieces of red. And of course, you'll need to do objectives to free those areas of imprisonment. And that's like your main goal. And there's also 3 monsters summoned by Ganondorf that you are supposed to take down as well. And then, of course, Ganondorf will most likely be the final boss of the game. So far, the game has hooked me. I like the combat. I like the elements that they've kind of put into this Warriors type game, and I am interested in playing plenty more of it once I get around to it. With it being on the Switch 2, I haven't had any performance issues or anything like that. The only thing that I think that it's a little lacking in the number of enemies on screen at the same time. Even though there are a fair amount of enemies on the map itself, the clusters of enemies do seem to be about like 50 to 100 enemies in a little cluster, and sometimes those enemies are just like these little tiny shade enemies that, they're like 2 hits to kill, stuff like that. Obviously, now that I am going further into the game, the enemies are getting a bit more. There's a bit more variety in the enemies, and they're able to group up a bit more. But there's not really been an awe-inspiring moment like in Dynasty Warriors Origins, because, I mean, yeah, they are planning on putting Dynasty Warriors Origins on the Switch 2. I believe it's coming next year. And I've already expressed my concerns about that game because they gave it like a cel-shaded kind of look to it, and it just didn't look to be in like the best performance-wise. But this Age of Imprisonment game does give me a bit of hope for that port. Now, am I going to buy the port for Dynasty Warriors Origins on the Switch 2? No, no, I'm probably not. But at the same time, it should give some people some positive vibes to have Age of Imprisonment running as well as it is. Now, obviously, this is a game that was, from the ground up, designed for the Switch 2. There's not even a Switch 1 version of the game. So, take that as with what you will, but at the same time, like, it should give you a little bit of faith that the Dynasty Warriors Origins port is going to be at least serviceable at best. But Chaos Dog bumping through the door. But yes, I am enjoying Age of Imprisonment so far. I'm not super far into it yet, so I'll probably talk about it more next week. But just like the base things, good combat, fun story going on. Now, I'm not like a huge Legend of Zelda fan like other people, but I can appreciate a good game, and I can appreciate the Warriors style gameplay and stuff like that. So I'm having fun with that. And I'm having fun with the story too. I think the story is fine. I just I'm having a good time with it. And one of the cooler things too about it is there's a character who's voiced by a YouTuber I watch who's in the game as well, which is pretty cool. He had a part in God of War Ragnarok as well. So getting around. PlayStation, now Nintendo. What's next? Xbox. He's going to be in the next Halo. We'll see. But yeah, if you want to check out Age of Imprisonment, it is a thumbs up for me right now. I am enjoying my time with it, and maybe you will too. If you like Warriors games, or if you're just a Legend of Zelda fan, it's definitely there. It definitely has a lot of good going for it. One of the other things I forgot to mention, oh my gosh. One of the things I forgot to mention is that you can actually command your allies. So, like, you go into a match with, like, two friends with you or allies with you, and you can actually tell them by bringing up the map to go to certain camps. So if you have one of those maps that's a bit more open with multiple camps you got to capture before going to the main thing, you can tell them to go to a specific camp. Now, they're not going to be able to take the camp by themselves because the AI is actually pretty dumb in the game. It's mostly on you to do things. But you can switch characters anytime you want by pressing up or down on the D-pad. So that, you can send them over there and they'll kind of do their thing for a little bit. But then you take them over, boom, bada, bing, you're good to go. So you can take over that base and possibly build a camp. So that's the last thing that I forgot to mention. But yeah, so far enjoying the game, and like I said, I think you will too. All right, let's talk about Battlefield 6. So I'm finally ready to give a bit of a final thoughts on Battlefield 6. Now I'm not going to call this. I guess you could call it a final review, but with how Battlefield 6 is structured, with being mainly a multiplayer game, it's hard to be like, well, this is it. This is the finale for my thoughts on Battlefield 6, because it's going to ever be changing, right? They're going to be tweaking things. They're going to be changing things, much like with how many times I talked about like Black Ops 6 last year and into this year. Like, it's always changing. There's new things coming around, new guns to talk about, stuff like that. This will be my thoughts on the game as a whole right now as a package, and the campaign itself, because I did finish up the campaign, which I was able to mark the game as, at least I marked it as beaten. But I'm still going to play it because it's still a fun multiplayer game. The campaign is just, how do I put this? The campaign is just kind of like, eh. It has its moments, and it's so funny because it has like these really bombastic moments, but between those bombastic moments that are actually really fun is a bunch of slop. It's just gunning through the world's dumbest AI bots you could ever imagine, and then you get to like this really cool section where, like a nuke goes off, right? Or you get like this nice view of like the battle around you, and it's just like explosions and whatever going off, and maybe there's some moments where it's like, okay, this is the part where you're doing like a beach landing, and you're in like one of those vehicles that's kind of like a amphibious vehicle, so it goes onto the land, and you start going onto and you use a machine gun, you're helping out your allies on the ground. Bombastic moments like that where it's cool, right? But like I said, after you're done with the beach landing and you get off of that or tank or whatever, the rest of it's just like, okay, here we go. We're going into the village and we're going street to street, and we're doing this, we're doing that, and then the level takes way too long and the level ends. And that was pretty much the whole game, where it's like, okay, so the start of this level is you parachute in, kind of like in Godzilla 2014 when the American troops are like parachuting in with the flares on their feet, right? In like the maelstrom. So you kind of do the same thing where you're parachuting in from a very high point. They kind of recreated like the Mission Impossible Fallout scene. And you land on one of like a peak of a mountain. You land at Gibraltar, and it's like, okay, cool, that was a cool sequence. What are they going to do with this? And it just kind of like turns into, all right, shoot the bots. And then later on in the level, you go inside of this World War II museum, and they actually have like the place mapped out pretty accurately, and there's plaques you can read, and like mannequins dressed up as World War II soldiers and stuff like that. It's like, that's all really cool. It's all really well designed. And once you get through that, it's like, and now we're back to just, going place to place, shooting up enemies. It felt like it needed more substance. I think back to Battlefield 4's campaign, even Battlefield 1 as well, and there was a lot more going on in those campaigns than just go to point A, go to point B, shoot the enemies at point B, then go to point C, and then shoot all the enemies at C. It just felt like there was more to do in those other campaigns. Battlefield 5, I mean, I don't really like Battlefield 5, at least, but the campaign itself, like, even though it wasn't like historically accurate for the most part, there were still some unique things you were doing in there, some stealth sections and stuff like that. Battlefield 6 is pretty much just like shoot everything and maybe defend, maybe attack, maybe get on a mortar with a drone guided rocket every so often, and that's kind of it. The characters in the game didn't really care for the main villain of the game. They had to shoehorn in a main villain. I liked his Irish accent, or Scottish accent, Scottish accent. But other than that, like, he was a real blank slate of a character. The main twist of the game you could see coming a mile away, because guess what? It's so annoying when games and movies and TV shows do this, where they have the main part of the story taking place in the present, and then everything that you're playing is taking place in the past. So characters and motivations and whatever, they're all laid out. You already know what's going to happen. Same thing with this game. You go through the campaign, they start you off with the Pax Armada, like blowing up the UN forces, right? But they have that scene where this person's house is being infiltrated by this rogue group that was put together. And you're supposed to think like, oh, this is happening right now. But no, it's actually happening in the future as compared to when the Pax attacked the UN forces. So all the characters who are in this future scene, there's no stakes around them. And all the events that are happening in the present scene, it pretty much gives away the plot twists of the main campaign itself. It's one of those things where it's just a basic writing trope, and it is just that. It's just that. It's basic writing, and there's not much thought put into it. The main thing is like, look at the spectacle, listen to the soundtrack, learn how to play the game, essentially. The campaign just feels like a giant tutorial for, like, the basics of Battlefield sometimes. Even though you don't go and capture bases in, like, a conquest mode or a rush mode or anything like that, it still just feels like, okay, you're getting into a vehicle, this is how you control a vehicle, okay, this is how you, spot enemies and blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, it really was a nothing campaign, in all honesty. Like, even though they had its moments, I will say that a lot of the review sites got this one right by saying the campaign just not too good. If I was just rating the campaign for the game, I would probably give it like a 2.5 out of 5. It's one of those ones that I will play, probably forget about. Maybe I'll bring it up in passing when I'm talking about future games like Black Ops 7 or the next Battlefield game or whatever, and I won't really remember much about it because there's really nothing going on here other than a couple of cool moments throughout the entirety of the 2-hour runtime of the campaign. It's also a very short campaign. And the craziest thing is how closely related Battlefield 6's campaign was to something like Modern Warfare 2019. Right? 2019? The reboot of Modern Warfare. There was a mission where you went house to house and you had to clear out the Pax, who are terrorists in this situation because they're in downtown Brooklyn. And much like that mission, I forget what it was called. Was it just called House or Clear House or something like that? It's the one where you're going through the UK like suburb, and you go inside this house and you take out the enemies. Right? It's pretty much the same thing where you go through this house. You get the sledgehammer, which is a nice touch because now instead of just going hall to hall, you can actually smash through walls. But it was pretty much the same formula of you went room to room, clearing out the packs, getting intel, moving on. So it was really crazy how closely related it was to that. And then there was a level later on in the game that took place at night. You were in like the streets of Egypt, Cairo, and it reminded me of another segment from Modern Warfare 2019 where remember you're like in the middle of that. There's like a United States building in the middle of a city, a town. I forget where it was, Iraq or something like that. And all of a sudden it's under attack by the terrorist forces around you. And there was a section where, yeah, it was a rainy day. You're in a house in the middle of Cairo, and then all of a sudden, the Pax forces come out of the woodwork and start attacking you, and there's a chopper flying around, and it just really felt like the same thing. And then there was even a lead up to that point that reminded me of a mission from Modern Warfare 3, the old one, the original Modern Warfare 3, not MW3, but the original Modern Warfare 3, where you are stealthily going around in I think it was Prague or something like that. And you're kind of like dodging armored vehicles and enemies and stuff like that while taking out a couple here and there. And yeah, there was a whole section before that part in Cairo where it just reeked of, this is essentially that Prague level from Modern Warfare 3, which it's just a little stinky. It's a little stinky. Maybe it's flying too close to the sun, or maybe they just use too similar of ideas. And if it wasn't if Modern Warfare 2 Modern Warfare Reboot from 2019 came out at the same time as Battlefield 6, then I would be like, well, there's really no correlation. Just two different ideas floating, or two similar ideas floating around at the same time the game was released. But Modern Warfare Reboot came out in 2019, so Battlefield 6 should know better than to use things that are pretty much you could directly trace them to each other. And like I said, there is a subtle differences. Like, you're not fighting just in the house in Battlefield 6. You get out of the house and you go on like the roof, and then you go down this like alleyway. Right? So it's not entirely the same. Same thing with the building or room type search. Like, you get the sledgehammer, you actually go onto the rooftop and you climb across the rooftops, get to the next building and stuff like that. So there are differences, but the fact remains that it's very similar in tone, especially when you don't have that sledgehammer at the start and you're going up the stairs with your squad. I just got flashbacks of that Modern Warfare level, which is one of the greatest first-person shooter levels of all time. But in this case, it's being used for Battlefield 6, which needs to make everything extra bombastic. So instead of it just being a clear house kind of situation, it's, let's use a sledgehammer and knock through walls and knock out windows and stuff like that, and kill people from behind with the sledgehammer, stuff like that. That is to say that the level of destruction in the campaign far outweighs the level of destruction in the multiplayer maps. And this was a bit of a disappointing thing to me. I've been playing the game enough now to realize that the destruction level in the game, it doesn't even rival that of Battlefield 4 back in the day. It kind of feels on the same level, because Battlefield 4 also had buildings that were semi-indestructible where their core could still remain. And I did make the point during the beta that, like, okay, they'll probably have some maps that are much more destructible, because if you destroy all these buildings in Cairo, well, then the map just turns into a shell of itself. But at the same time, like, there are hardly any buildings that can be completely destroyed unless it's a lightweight trailer, or there are some buildings in the map that's on the side of a mountain that can be completely leveled. But at the same time, there are plenty of instances where just things are indestructible. I will take an RPG and I will shoot a wall in Brooklyn, and I can't go, it just bounces off the wall. I can't go through that wall. But then there's a wall next to it that I can shoot that I can go through that wall. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And I feel like maps like Brooklyn and stuff like that, with buildings that are spaced out, should have the most destructibility in them. There's one building in Brooklyn that you, if you're playing Conquest, is where B is at, and B is up on top of a building. And if you don't recall, in Battlefield 4, there was a really infamous map where there was a Conquest flag on the top of a building, and you could actually destroy that building and completely level it and bring the point you need to capture down to the ground floor, and it's just a pile of rubble. And I feel like if they had just taken some more inspiration from the destructibility of Battlefield 4 at least, then there you go. There's something there that kind of alleviate this problem. Maybe take the objective off the map if you destroy the building, and you don't have to make the building like easily destructible. But at the same time, like, it barely has any destructibility to it. There's just so many places that you go to where it's like, well, why can't I just shoot an RPG at this statue and blow it up? Well, no, you can't. Well, as a tank, why can't I? In the campaign, there's a tank level. It's one of my favorite levels in the campaign. But it's in the level, it like shows you like you can drive through buildings and through parking garages and just destroy everything in your way. They designed that map for that level around complete destructibility. But if you go into a tank in a regular map for multiplayer, and you try and drive through a building like a Bradley or in whatever, you'll get stuck. You might be able to break through the first wall, but you won't be able to go anywhere after that because, like I said in the past, and as I'm saying now, the skeleton has to remain in the side of these buildings, which, in all honesty, just doesn't make any sense to me. We've had plenty of Battlefield maps from Bad Company 2, Battlefield 3, even Battlefield 4, with completely destructible buildings. And in Battlefield 6, it's not that level that I was expecting to be. They were selling this game as fully destructible, just balls to the wall, bombastic gameplay. And the gameplay is still fun and the multiplayer is great, don't get me wrong, but if I'm taking a sharper critical eye on this game, where is the destruction at? Because from what I've seen, there's so many buildings that are indestructible. And like back in the day when you played like Bad Company 2, the only indestructible buildings in that game were the ones that were like construction buildings. They were not finished. You could destroy like walls and stuff like that, but the structure of the construction building could never break. But every other building, toppable. From campaign to multiplayer. Completely destructible. They obviously scaled that back when the graphics got better for Battlefield 3 and Battlefield 4, of course, but at the same time, like I felt like those games had a fair amount of extra fun things to it that kind of evened out the lack of super destructibility that I came to know and love from Battlefield 2. I'm sorry, Bad Company 2. So there was a bit of disappointment swirling around in my brain simply for that, because it was touted as like one of the most destructible games ever, and it just isn't. It isn't that by a long shot. And at the same time, I don't find a lot of the maps super fun to play on. Like they're fun enough. Like I do enjoy Cairo, the building kind of gameplay. I do like Brooklyn for the most part, like the one that's like the big conquest map. There's a smaller version of Brooklyn, which I think is called Manhattan actually, where the map is super small and there's no vehicles on it at all. It's a cool map in concept, but in actuality, it's just a very annoying one. There's another map that I do enjoy. It has like the two buildings that are under construction next to each other in the middle, and then on either side there's a conquest points to capture. I don't mind that one too much. Once again, I felt like this map should highlight the destructibility, but instead it's just like it's an indestructible building after indestructible building. The oil fields, which is one they just added in. I actually don't mind the map too much, but it does become a sniper's paradise, which is the same problem with the map that is on the side of a mountain from the beta. It just becomes, you're trying to hide from enemy fire, you get sniped. You're running down to maybe capture an objective, get sniped, instant headshot kill. Maybe you're recovering from a battle fight. Maybe you're fighting from a firefight, sniped. Maybe you're trying to take out the sniper, sniped. I feel like there's some of these maps that are very much like, well, everyone loves sniping, right? So we got to make these maps so that a sniper can see the entire map. And it's like, no, I don't think that's a good idea. Even though there is that giant mountain in the middle of the map that's on the mountain, but most of the map is viewable from the back of one side's. It's also kind of annoying that one side gets a base right next to their HQ that is high enough that you can see everything out in front of you, and you can see like 3 objectives, and you can it's just like where was the thought process for this one? I get the thought process for the construction buildings. Two large structures in the middle of a mostly flat area. I get the idea there. Same thing with the oil fields. There's plenty of hills and stuff to hide from snipers, and buildings as well. Once again, there's another building in the middle of the oil fields that houses an objective, and it is very destructible, just not completely destructible. So there's all these things that it's like you're almost there. You're so close to being there where I want it to be, but it just doesn't work out that way. And yeah, that's kind of my point there. The other thing that has annoyed me is the anti-aircraft guns in the game. There will be times where a chopper, if it has the right crew, feels indestructible. And maybe it is a bit of a skill issue for a lot of people, but I feel like if I have one of those anti-aircraft launchers in my inventory and I use it, it has 3 shots in it, or 4 if you upgrade your engineer class. I should be able to kill it in those 3 shots. Much like with a tank, you can kill a tank with 3 RPG shots. In this case, with the Stinger or whatever it's called in the game, I should be able to take on that chopper in 3 shots. But the problem is that you fire off 1 shot, the helicopter uses flares, and then before you can off another shot, it runs away and hides behind a hill, or it ducks down below coverage or whatever. And then it will come back like a couple minutes later and start wiping out your friendlies. And you once again you shoot a missile at it, flares. Now, if you have multiple people with anti-aircraft guns, then you'd be able to take it down. But usually, when you're in a multiplayer match, no one's using anti-aircraft weaponry because it's all about the RPGs, it's all about the javelins, stuff like that. So, that's more of a team-based thing. Like, maybe more people should put the anti-aircraft guns on. But at the same time, if you put an anti-aircraft gun on, you're also losing the ability to fight vehicles. And in most instances, you're going to want to have the RPG on because at least you can free aim and try and destroy the helicopter with a lucky shot. Or maybe a skillful shot, depending on how you are. So I'm going on for a bit longer than I wanted to about this, but just know that there are. I was very hyped going into this game. As you all know, I was defending it. I was talking very highly of it. The beta was great. I enjoyed the beta a lot. It's funny because then I went back and played Battlefield 2042, and I'm like, oh, this is pretty good. I can't wait for the next game though. And I almost would rather there are times where it's like, man, I remember playing Battlefield 2042 and it just felt more balanced. It felt like the maps had a better layout to them at times. Like there are just some things that I just feel like they kind of missed the mark with this Battlefield 6 game. But at the end of the day, it's still really fun to play. I think it's definitely worth the price of entry. The Red Sec mode, I could not give a flying fuck about. I don't care for battle royale modes, and from what I saw I was watching Angry Joe play it. I know I keep bringing him up every episode, but I watch him for some of the more popular games that maybe I'm not going to be playing or modes I'm not going to be playing. And in this case, it was the Red Sec mode, and it just looked like Warzone. You're putting in armor, you're using weapons you find and scavenge. Enemies, they have to be double tapped, right? You take them down, then you take them down again. It's just it's pretty much just Warzone with a Battlefield skin on it, Battlefield physics. So I find no interest in even trying that mode out at this point. And I didn't even really play any of Warzone when that came out. I think I played a couple of rounds because it was new, but at this point, I don't think I've played Warzone in quite a long time. I know I downloaded it when Black Ops 6 had a special gun you could get by playing or having loading up Warzone, but then I uninstalled it right away before even playing around. No one wanted to play it who I talked to, and I also did not want to play it myself. So just went ahead and uninstalled that. And Red Sec, I kind of feel the same way, where it's like no one really wants to play it. I don't really want to play it. I would rather just play regular multiplayer. And that's that. And of course, with a game like this, it's probably not going to be finished, quote unquote, for a long time. I'm hoping that this game does have longevity to it. And I know it is pretty popular right now. It's at the top of the sales charts on PlayStation right now. And I believe PC on Steam is still in the top 10. But at the same time, there are cracks showing in this armor almost every time I play the game. And it's a bit concerning. This is not to say that I don't still recommend picking it up, but it's also a fair critique. I like to be fair. I like to be honest, and that's what I'm being. So this is the more negative talk about Battlefield 6, the section of the show. But the positives are, as I've already talked about in the past. I do think, graphically it looks great. Sound design wise, it's great. The music in the game is good. I really like the music. I like the weapons in the game. I think the weapons are pretty good. I think some of them need to be a little bit more harder hitting to make them more viable to play with. But for the most part, I like the selection of weapons in the game. I like that they went back to a 4-class system. I do like that they brought back all the different game modes, including Rush. I feel like Rush was much needed here. I like the new dragging your companion who is down by the collar of their shirt, to get them into a position where you can heal them. I like the grand nature of these maps. I think that some of the maps have really tight design to them, but there is a fair amount of maps that don't. I like the gadgets that you can get in the game. I think that the engineer class has the most promising stuff to it. Lots of different options for you there. You still have those cool battlefield moments where you are, maybe you can't shoot while parachuting anymore, which is kind of annoying to me, but maybe you do parachute in behind a tank, lay some mines behind them, and bait them to backing up by trying to splice them a little bit, and then they run to your mines and blow up. Like, there are those moments where you're just like, there's really cool moments like that. Or you'll have a really good game that's really back and forth where you're capturing bases, the enemy's capturing bases. You're getting, it's kind of like a stalemate for most of the match. And then one team starts to get up. There's still a lot of cool moments like that, and I think in general the community is pretty nice. Obviously, with a chat mode in any game, there's going to be toxic players saying toxic things. I feel like in terms of Battlefield 6, it's been a bit lighter than what I saw in Black Ops 6 when I was playing that, but at the same time, people are still kind of assholes on there. So, what are you going to do? But yeah, I mean, I think the game, there is a lot of good with the game, but being a multiplayer game, I don't know if it's going to have the longevity that I was hoping for. That's the only thing that kind of concerns me, because I do still have a fair amount of issues with it, even though most, if not all, of the updates are going to be free. New maps, new weapons, etc. There's still also the nagging battle pass in there, and the skins that are kind of brightly colored, which is like, well, spend your money on a brightly colored, like neon green, accented outfit if you want. You're just going to become sniper bait for the most part. So, it's just one of those things where, okay, yeah, and so we have to have a battle pass in here. We have to have this battle royale mode. The campaign feels tacked on. Like, I know I've been kind of shitting on Black Ops and stuff like that lately, but the thing you can't say about Black Ops 6 was that it wasn't a full package, and each piece of that package felt earned. The campaign for Black Ops 6 I thought was fun. The multiplayer for Black Ops 6, at least at the start, was good. I enjoyed my time with that. The zombies mode with the base maps were good. I enjoyed those maps, and even some of the more the later maps within updates I enjoyed as well. And even though I don't play Warzone, I can still say like Warzone is something for the people who want the battle royale. It's kind of a long running thing, and I believe the map was brand new that they put in for Black Ops 6, so that was nice for the people who want that as well. So it was kind of like a complete package there, and even though I didn't pay for the package itself, I did pay for several of the season passes later on because I was enjoying the game so much. With Battlefield 6, I haven't felt like I want to buy the season pass. I haven't felt like I'm going. I definitely don't think I'm going to replay any mission from Battlefield 6's campaign, let alone even think about playing a mission again from Battlefield 6's campaign. The Red Sec mode I haven't even touched. It's downloaded, but I'll probably uninstall it because it's just taking up space. The season pass it just doesn't interest me. The portal mode is cool though. Like, the portal mode in the game is cool, but once again, that is really like, the portal mode isn't like a separate feature like it was in Battlefield 2042, where you could play like the old versions, like you could play like a World War II or a Battlefield 2 map or whatever. It's much more like, okay, just user created content, user created maps as well, and stuff like that, which is game modes, which is cool. I like that, but it doesn't feel like its own mode per se. So you can really lump in multiplayer and portal mode into the same thing, where both of those are good on their own as well, but combined, it just makes more sense to combine them. So, as I already said, this is going on for way too long, but at the end of the day, Battlefield 6, I do enjoy it. This is not me like tearing the game to pieces and never playing it again. I will be picking it up multiple times throughout the rest of the year for sure. And I will be comparing it to Black Ops 7. When Black Ops 7 does come out, I very much would like to see what Call of Duty's offering is to combat what Battlefield 6 has done. And originally, when I had this idea, I was like, oh, Battlefield 6 is going to win this, no problem. But now I'm a bit concerned because Battlefield 6, even though I still enjoy the game, I do have my criticism about it. At the end of the day, in its state right now, I'm giving Battlefield 6 a 3.5 out of 5. It could go up with updates. It could go down with updates. But that is my main sticking point here. And as I already said, the campaign itself is like a 2.5, which does bring the overall game score down. And then my various other criticisms for the game compact and compile and made has me coming up with a 3.5. I think it's above average. It's honestly, this is the same rating that I gave Battlefield 2042, which to a lot of people would be like, well, that's a bad sign. But to me, it's like, well, I liked Battlefield 2042, so hang on there. But yeah, I think it's above average. I think it is like the better of the Battlefield games that we've gotten, since like Battlefield 5 and 2042. Like I feel like it's one of the better games that has come out. But I don't think that this beats the grandiose nature of Battlefield 1 and its setting. I don't think this game beats Battlefield 4 in its grandiose design once again. I don't think this beats Bad Company 2 in terms of destructibility and fun factor. I think the only game that Battlefield 6 is actually better than right now is probably Battlefield 3, but at the same time, I have a lot of fond memories of Battlefield 3 as well. But maybe in the future, Battlefield 6 I'll feel the same way. Where after the dust settles and all the updates have come out, maybe I will look back fondly on Battlefield 6. But the one thing I will never look back fondly on is the campaign minus a couple of moments. So there you go. I once again, very long-winded, talked about this for way longer than I wanted to, but let's move on. I finished Cronos, The New Dawn this past week, and I was very into this game for quite a while. There is a lot going on in terms of story and presentation and et cetera, et cetera. It was right around Act 3 where it started to lose me a bit because it was starting to go way too far into just these things that I just was really dreading that they were going that in the direction. I don't know how much I want to spoil of the game, but I'll start off with some basic thoughts. Much of this stuff I covered in my original thoughts for the game when it came out. That was like 2 months ago at this point. But I did finally get it done today. I kind of put it off for a little while, but I was still enjoying the game as I played snippets of it here and there. And then I finally said, I need to, hunker down and play this game. So I played for about 4 hours straight on like Saturday or Sunday. And then the following day I played another big chunk, and that actually was when I ended up finishing it on like Monday night or Tuesday night, whichever night it was. So at the start of the game, you're playing as this like tankish character who's very plotting. They have really loud footsteps. You're in this big armor, like helmet thing is on, and you are removed from this capsule with a mission to go back and get people of interest from the past. And I think on face value, that is cool. I like that idea. You're getting these major figures from the past. You're saving essentially their essence, their DNA, or whatever you want to call it, and you are, just from they don't actually spell it out for you in the game, but it's just inferring that you are making more of these like armored dudes, and that was great for quite some time. Just like that idea pushing you forward of get the important person from the past, get their essence. They have a little upgrade along with them. Take them back with you to the present or future, and start the transfer for putting their essence into one of these like little hexagon things that are littered everywhere. and you have remnants of the people who have come before you who have plotted the course and laid the groundwork for your adventure, and you're keeping a log yourself as you go through. And I just think like base, looking out, like as a I'm going to try and remove anything that happened later in the game from my mind right now. Looking out, I say that's a great concept. I think that going to the past and seeing how the world was like the night of or the day of the outbreak of mutation or whatever you want to call it, the thingening, is cool. I mean that first time you go to the past, you go to like the night of, right, like the calm before the storm, and you're actually exploring around this apartment complex, and people are like talking to you through doors, and you're hearing people like laugh and cry and whatever behind closed doors, and you have all these posters and stuff up that you can read and different things like that, and you eventually find your way to getting to the monsters to come back. You see like the outbreak starting underneath one of these buildings, and no one's really seen it yet. People are disappearing and stuff like that, but they don't know the extent of what is going on. They think it's just like a serial killer or something like that, right? So you go underneath this one building. It's just full of these mutated like blobs of flesh, and that's kind of when like the outbreak really starts right there, and it starts to become a mass outbreak. But before that can happen, like fully, you find your target, you extract him, you come back to the normal time. With the second one, you go to the steelworks, and I thought this was also a very good moment where you see the steelworks in disarray as it is after or post the outbreak. But when you go back in time, you go to the day of the steelworks outbreak, which was the original outbreak for the whole virus thing. And it's just the chaos and the commotion, and once again you're seeing like these soldiers get like torn apart by these mutant creatures, and it's very cool. It's very cool to go back and see that in real time, and then come back to the future and you see like the aftermath and the remnants of that as well. Very cool. It was after that point that the story started to become a bit predictable in a way. Because they introduced this one character in the Steelworks. It was this woman who had glasses on. She was kind of like a scientist, and she runs away from you in fear. You just go, okay, she was just afraid of us, right? But you meet her again in the hospital when you go back in time, and she's at the hospital. And it was at that point that you start to notice things in the game and in the story that are like, okay, well, what's actually going on here? And it was by the time that like Act 3 came around after the hospital that I had pretty much nailed down the sequence of events that were going to happen. Because throughout this time, you're helping out this other guy in an armored suit. You have never seen another alive guy in an armored suit before. This guy calls himself the Warden, and he's trying to fix the device that, you put these people's essences into the ether, right? He's trying to fix that device for you. But it becomes very clear in the cutscene after the hospital that he's not okay. Like the My Chemical Romance song, he's not okay. And it was at that point that I realized that we were most likely some version of that female scientist character brought back somehow. Didn't really know how, but that was kind of what I was thinking, that we are that character, because the signs were there, and also the way that this Warden character was talking to us, it just felt, and they also had revealed that one of the, one of the armored guys went back in time and was captured and was interacting with this person. And it was at that point that I went, oh, that's the Warden, and she's, so he forms this relationship and because he's with the humans for so long, he starts to feel human emotions again, like love and hate and whatever. So now, of course, because he has this new existence of being more human, he gathers all their stuff and puts it into a building, and he's playing piano in there and blah blah blah. And at that point, I was like, yeah, this guy is gonna betray us for sure. And lo and behold, we find out that we are that character for sure, 100%. And we find out what he did to that character in this timeline and blah blah blah. So he's like, he gets really pissed off at us. He tears open a tear in time and space. He goes back in time to try and correct the things that he did, right, and start anew. So at the end of the day, I felt like that final act of the game, pretty much post or maybe even during the hospital, I just felt like the story had diminished. It had gotten overly complicated, and then it had also diminished storytelling-wise into more of a regular kind of run, go through the numbers type thing. And I still enjoyed the game. I think the gameplay itself held the game together, even though the story was starting to wane. And by the end of the game, even though there was a very annoying boss fight at the very end, I think that at the end of the game, I still felt satisfied, all things considered, because the gameplay itself, it's very much a mixture of Resident Evil, maybe like the newer Resident Evils, like Resident Evil 2 Remake or whatever, and they mixed it in with like the Dead Space stuff as well. So it is a very much a combination of those two games, survival horror, with these mutant creatures that need to be taken down with a couple of shots, maybe to the head, and you can also make them stumble by shooting their leg. And you have a gun that's very weighty. Everything feels very weighty, much like the suit in Dead Space and Isaac. And you also have these anti-gravity boots as well that come into handy, which kind of reminded me of doing the anti-gravity stuff in Dead Space. And I think that the vibes are very much there for the game. It's very dreary, very atmospheric, very gritty. It's got all those like red hues and red lights everywhere, and there's all this, when the growth is around you, you can it moves, and you can hear like the squishiness and all that stuff going on around you. And the enemy designs themselves are very cool too, even though a lot of them are just kind of repeated over and over and over again. I still think that this whole like virus situation is still pretty cool, all things considered. Like the enemy designs and stuff like that, they really work for the game itself. And even some of the boss fights, the bosses in the game are very cool as well, and some of them are very reminiscent of something you would see in Resident Evil or Dead Space, but at the same time they have their own flair to them. There was one point where you go to this church, and it was at that point where I felt like the story was becoming much more basic, because in every apocalyptic game, there is a church that is embracing the apocalypse, right? And it just happens every single time. And in this case, it was exactly what you expect. It's the same thing it's the same trope you've had in plenty of other things, whether it be in zombie media or whatever. And I just, at that point, I was like, it still looks cool, like the whole church grounds and going into the catacombs underneath the church, and there's like all these bones everywhere mixed in with the mush of human existence. And the final boss for the church was pretty cool too. Like I enjoyed that. But at the same time, like the story that they were telling for the church was just very straightforward, very basic. And all the other times you go to different areas like the steelworks or the apartment buildings or the hospital, it really feels like a very unique setting. Like maybe not a unique setting, but a unique story going on for that setting. And the church just really felt like the same old, same old. And you don't even go back in time in the church one, which I was very surprised at. I think it would have been very cool to go back in time and see this church as they try and recruit members and embrace the end of the world and the apocalypse and stuff like that. I really felt like that could have been a cool thing, but they did not. They didn't do that. So at the end of the day, I think that a lot of the game is great. Bloober Team did a really good job with it, but I think that the next game that they make, whether it be Cronos the New Dawn 2 or the Old Dawn, maybe they'll call it, I don't know, the next Cronos game, or whether it be something else completely different, I think they can take this game as a good building block, a good starting place for an original game, and really work their way up and make something that is even better. As it stands, Cronos the New Dawn is still really good. I enjoyed the game a lot. I felt like they did a lot of cool things, especially in the first half of the game. It starts to stumble a bit in the second half, especially once Act 3 begins. And even though it's still good in terms of gameplay and stuff like that, the story started to lose me a lot at the end of the game. And the final boss fight was annoying. Have to put that back in there. So at the end of the day, I do still recommend you play Cronos the New Dawn, especially if you're a person who's a fan of Resident Evil or Dead Space, or Silent Hill, even. I don't know. I gave it a 4 out of 5. Still very enjoyable, and maybe down the road I would play it again. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right. As you know, Bunger Month is still going. The month where we celebrate the best character design in any video game ever, Bunger. And we played Reign of Fire on the PS2 for our second game. Our first game was Time Splitters. Talked about that last week. Reign of Fire was an odd experience. It's based off of the movie from like 2000 something, 2008, something like that, starring Christian Bale and Matthew McConaughey. The game itself had a really good idea for the humans side of things, where you're driving around these big trucks and you're shooting down dragons and you're using water to put out fires and stuff like that. And I felt like the human campaign was decent enough. There was one level in particular that I felt like was really super annoying. You were driving around this like little buggy, and you had to collect eggs from these dragons, and then you had like a time limit as well at the same time. It was kind of annoying, but I got through it. The main annoyance was the final level, where you're using a tank to fight the alpha male of the dragon herd. And essentially, unless I turned on invincibility cheats, I wasn't going to beat that thing. I don't know how you're supposed to beat that thing. They don't give you any health upgrades. They don't give you any ammo drops until like the second half of the fight. And if you do make it to the second half of the fight, you better not get on fire, because there's nowhere to get fire off of your vehicle with water in the second area. So it was a real disaster for the last human level. But I think in general the human levels were fun. They felt good. There was something unique about them. And I was like, oh, but there's also dragon missions you can do. That's pretty cool, right? That's got to be cool. Unfortunately not. The dragon stuff was very hard to control. It was just the most unintuitive control scheme I have ever played for a flying game, or at least a flying concept. With the vehicles for the humans, it makes sense to have your, just wherever you're pointing the main gun is kind of where you start driving. That makes sense. With the dragon, it doesn't make it sense at all, because with how the game wants you to play it, you're supposed to like look down at the ground and strafe enemies while firing fireballs or spewing napalm. But the thing is, when you're flying over the humans and you're firing fireballs, the dragon will still go the direction that you're pointing. So you'll just nosedive into the ground and get killed, get shot up by the enemies on the ground, because they'll be right there next to you. So they definitely needed to implement like a separate joystick for the head of the dragon, because that would have just made it so much better. So where it stands, you literally don't use the right stick for anything. It's all on the left stick. And with the humans, it wasn't that bad. It worked. With the dragons, though, it didn't work at all. There was no way that I was going to get a hang of those controls. And the missions themselves were very annoying for the dragons, like even more annoying than the most annoying human level. And it was at that point where I said, well, at least try out all these levels and whatnot, and then we'll call it a day. And that's exactly what I did. And yeah, it was a bit of a disappointment at the end, because when I first started Reign of Fire on PS2, I thought that, yeah, it was a good game. It was kind of unique as a movie tie-in game as well. I think it played pretty well for the humans, but yeah, once we got past those human levels and I realized how BS the final boss fight for the human levels were, it just kind of went downhill from there, and it never really recovered, which is why at the end of the day, I gave it a 2 out of 5. If you have it in your collection, or if you're curious, I do think that it is worth for like $5 or whatever on eBay. Yeah, maybe pick it up and check it out, because it is kind of a unique game, all things considered. But at the same time, it is just vastly unintuitive and poorly designed for at least half of the game, which is a real shame. Finally, for this section, I know we've been going on for a long time. Star Fox Zero was the next game that we played on or in Bunger Month. Star Fox Zero is a Wii U exclusive still. To this day, it's a Wii U exclusive. There has not been a Switch port. There has not been a Wii port. It is just a Wii U exclusive. And this was the first game that I had streamed from the Wii U. So there was a lot of anxiety going in because I didn't know exactly how that was going to work. Ended up being pretty all right. Besides from the fact that the gamepad was about to die at the end of the stream, stream with the Wii U wasn't too bad, and Star Fox Zero itself was not too bad. I think that the main thing about the game that really brings it down are those extra vehicles they pack into it. Because if you're flying with the R-Wing, or even if you're using the Chicken Walker mode, which is fine, but if you're flying with the R-Wing in space or above ground, that feels amazing. It plays well. It shoots well. You might be saying, well, Yemmy, but don't you have to use the joypad and move it around? You can actually turn that off, and it actually makes the game much more playable. You can still use the gamepad to kind of hone in your shots a bit, but you don't have to stare at the gamepad or keep moving it around. I even set it up so that I could move my chair around whichever way I needed to. But at the end of the day, after I did the training mode, it said, hey, you want to turn off the motion controls for the base game? And I was like, yeah, you would only have to use those motion controls if you decide to use the lock-on mechanic, which was only for free, the free range mode. Other than that, you didn't have to do it. So flying around with the R-Wing and battling with the R-Wing, whether it was against Star Wolf or various Andross forces, felt good. I felt like the level design was also pretty good too for those R-Wing missions. They really worked out, and there were some boss fights in there that I thought were actually pretty fun too. But the hovercraft in the game is pretty bad. That one, I don't know what they were thinking. That's the one where you have the ability to drop a little robot guy down, and he can hack things for you, or he can grab things like bombs and drop them from above. It's just one of those vehicles that I feel like maybe if they had designed the levels a bit more tightly around this craft, it would have worked out a bit better. But a lot of the levels that you play with the little craft, you're kind of in an open area. You don't move very fast. You can hit a lot. But then there was an area, a couple of sections where it's you're going from the top down. You're kind of going through a bit of a laser array through a little tube. I was like, wow, just make a couple levels like that where you're going down a shaft and there's enemies or something like that below you. But instead, it was a very short 2 sections there. So yeah, that vehicle didn't feel very good. And then the Chicken Walker itself, you can actually transform the R-Wing into this all-terrain assault vehicle thing. And I felt like it was fine, but the way that the controls are set up are very stupid for it. It's almost like the human thing, but to an extreme where it really just didn't feel good at all to control. And the final boss fight for the game kind of revolved around that. So I had to get good with the Chicken Walker mode, and I also had to get good at speed running the game as well, because I was still battling Andross when the gamepad was like, hey, you're almost out of battery, and the red light was flashing at the bottom as well. I was very nervous that the gamepad was going to shut off before we actually finished the game. And I had to actually restart that boss fight from the beginning because there's a lot of weird things going on with the Andross boss fight at the end that was just really annoying. But once we did we restarted the level, we had the best lasers again, we had the most lives we could again. We were able to defeat it the next try. So that was at least good. It started off a bit shaky against Star Wolf, but yeah, it's all right. It's all right at the end of the day. We didn't play all the levels because I didn't really feel like going through the regular levels. Essentially, it's built much like any other Star Fox game, where you have 3 paths you can go on: an easy path, a medium path, and a hard path. And of course, we got the hard path because it kind of, I'm competent at the games at least. So we went the hard path, and I'm sure that the medium and easy path are filled with fun levels as well. Maybe in the future I'll go and play through those if I want to, but for the most part, I felt fine just playing the hard levels. I didn't really break my heart to not play the easy levels. And I'm sure those levels probably had a tank level in there or something like that. We actually didn't get to drive the tank with the hard levels, which I thought was kind of weird. The tank was kind of like the special vehicle for at least Star Fox 64. You actually use the tank twice on the hard route. In the original Star Fox, I don't remember there being a tank, but Yeah, I can understand why they haven't ported the game over to the Switch, or they never ported the game over the Switch. It is a very unique control scheme that just wouldn't work with the Switch, and I know that they probably could tweak it, but I think the problem is that they really just kind of cut their losses with the game and said, nah, who's gonna buy this anyways if we do all this work? I would have bought it, but you can kind of see where Nintendo would be coming from, where it's like, why would we do all this work to redesign the entire game for a game that barely sold like 1 million copies or something like that? So yeah, I mean, right now, I my only hope is that within the next like year or so, we get a announcement of a new Star Fox game for the Switch 2, and hopefully it's not just another remake of Star Fox or Star Fox 64, right? Hopefully it is something kind of unique, and I hope that it uses all the characters, because even in Star Fox Zero, Crystal wasn't in Star Fox Zero. They replaced her with a different character called Cat, who was like a pink fox-looking character. I just don't understand why they would kind of sideline Crystal there. It doesn't really make sense. Crystal was in she was in Star Fox Assault and Adventures, of course. So why wouldn't she be in the latest iteration? Because Star Fox Zero is essentially another reboot of the Star Fox series. It's happened 3 times now. We have Star Fox 1. Then Star Fox 64 was a remake of Star Fox 1. And then we got Star Fox 64 on the DS. And then we got Star Fox Adventure, which was kind of another... And then Star Fox Assault. And then we got another reboot with Star Fox Zero. So yeah, three reboots there. So pretty crazy. Anyway, I actually do say, like, if you have a Wii U, try this game out. As a Star Fox fan myself, it was at least fun to play for the most part. Some janky control schemes in there is not going to bring down my score too much, but at the same time, it is still a detriment to the game. It has a great soundtrack. It looks pretty good. It runs pretty well, minus a couple sections where the frame rate dropped a bit. And I generally enjoyed my time with Star Fox Zero. Not the best Star Fox game. It's no Star Fox 64, but I would definitely play this over Star Fox 1. And I would probably even play this again over Star Fox Assault at this point. Because Star Fox Assault, even though Star Fox Assault kind of had the same problem where it's like the on the ground section where your boots on the ground with Star Fox or whoever were annoying and dumb. And the R-Wing stuff was amazing. It's kind of the same thing here, where it's like, if you're using the R-Wing in Star Fox Zero, which is 90% of the levels, it feels great. But if you use the other vehicles for the other, like 10% of those levels, well, yeah, not too great. But at the end of the day, Star Fox Zero, I gave it a 3.5 out of 5, which was better than I was expecting. And I'm glad that I went back and played it again so I could at least have a more positive experience. And if you want to check it out, I would recommend you do that. We might play Star Fox Guard eventually. I did have the like day one combo pack on my shelf, so I'll probably have to add that to my list of games to play. But as of right now, yeah, feeling pretty good, and would recommend if you have a Wii U. 3.5 out of 5. Let's go ahead and move on to what's in the news. First up, Grand Theft Auto has been delayed yet again, this time pushing it back to November of 2026. The original, well, I guess not the original, but the last release date was sometime in May 2026, and now they've decided to push it back to November 19th, 2026 as of this point. Other game studios out there are saying, we don't care. We're putting our game out wherever we want to put it out. Specifically, Marvel's Wolverine comes out around that same time, and they specifically said, no, we are not moving our release date ahead or back. So there you go. In a post on X, Rockstar Games said, hey everyone, Grand Theft Auto 6 will now release on Thursday, November 19th, 2026. We are sorry for adding additional time to what we realize has been a long wait, but these extra months will allow us to finish the game with the level of polish you have come to expect and deserve. We want to thank you again for your patience and support. While we wait, the wait is a little longer. We are incredibly excited for players to experience the sprawling state of Leondia, and return to modern day Vice City. Sincerely, Rockstar Games. At this point, people are like, they're joking around 2027 release. But I don't think it's unfounded to joke or even say that it could be pushed back to 2027. I believe the game was originally supposed to come out this year, if I'm not mistaken, like at the beginning or at the end of 2024. I think that's what the release date was set to, and then it got pushed back to 2026, and then May, and then now November. So it's quite likely that Grand Theft Auto will be pushed back again. I mean, I would not be surprised at this point if later on in 2026 they go, hey guys, the November release date, we're just not going to make that. It's going to be 2027. But we'll see. A thing to consider about this latest delay is allegedly, there is some turmoil inside of Rockstar Games. Apparently, Rockstar is doing some union-busting tactics on its employees, so there have been some protests and whatnot, which may be why the game is being pushed back, because people aren't working on the game at this moment. Like I said, allegedly, I've heard that this is happening, so that could be why this delay has taken effect, because employees are protesting, not working on the game, and we'll see if anything more comes of that. As of right now, though, the hype for Grand Theft Auto is at an all-time high, but also at the same time, like, I don't think people are going to really be hyped until we see full-on gameplay, not just like cutscenes, cinematics, and stuff like that. Like I understand like the cutscenes that they showed off, or not like cutscenes. This is like in-engine like scenes, kind of like how they did with Grand Theft Auto 5, where you would start a level and it's like Trevor walking to Franklin's house and having a conversation, right? And it's cinematically shot and the camera angles and all that, but it's still in-game engine. I believe that's what most of what Trailer 2 was, and if I recall from when I was talking about that. So we really haven't seen gameplay where it's someone driving around the city or shooting a gun or whatever, right? So I don't think people are going to be really super excited for the game until we start to see more about it in that sense. So yeah, November 2026 is now the release date, and Rockstar is highly confident that they will make the date, which I believe is what they said for May 26th, 2026 as well, but this time they are serious. Also, Marvel 1943 Rise of Hydra has been delayed as well. This is the game that's going to be like a 4-player co-op type thing where you have these characters who are from the World War II time period or aesthetic, like Captain America, Black Panther. Looks like there's also a sniper who might be a jazz musician, and also looks like some sort of espionage Wakanda type girl as well. So we don't have a lot of information for this game yet, so it's not like this delay is like super crazy, but this does kind of highlight the problem the gaming landscape is having, where they announce these games way too early, 2 years before the games are supposed to come out sometimes, and by the time that the game actually does come out, they usually miss whatever, quarter one of 2026, they usually miss that kind of thing anyway. So it stands to reason that more companies should take the Nintendo approach of announcing a game maybe less than a year out or about a year out and getting updates after that. If you announce a game 2-3 years early, like Crimson Desert, it just becomes a big like, oh yeah, I forgot about that game. Or when it shows back up, you go, wow, that's still in development. You could say the same thing about Dead Island 2 and Beyond Good and Evil 2. These games that kind of like get mentioned every so often just under the pretense that they've had long development cycles. But anyway, 1943, Rise of Hydra. They put out a post on X that said, "At Skydance Games, our goal is to deliver unforgettable premium games that honor the characters and worlds we're fortunate to work with. Marvel 1943 Rise of Hydra is an ambitious project, and we are committed to ensuring it meets the level of quality that our team, players, and fans expect. To fully realize our vision for Marvel 1943 Rise of Hydra, we've made the decision to shift our release window beyond early 2026. We're grateful for the passion and support of the community and players around the world. The team is working hard to create something truly special, and we look forward to sharing more with you as development progresses." This was a game that was announced way too early, and early 2026 doesn't feel that far away. But now that they're pushing it back, this might be another game that is released 2027. We haven't even seen gameplay for this game, if I do remember. We'll wait to hear more about that. And look, once again, maybe not once again for this podcast, but as I've said multiple times, it's never a bad thing to delay a game to polish it up and to work on it and make it better. And I will gladly hand them over more time to work on a game that comes out in a good place than a game that comes out and is just glitchy and a hell. So, take the time that they need, but also just a future like FYI, stop announcing these games so early because they're bound to be delayed most of the time. All right, November 7th has passed, and that is N7 Day, the day of Mass Effect. And these past couple of years for N7 Day, it really hasn't been too bombastic. I think the last thing I got excited about was when they showed off the character concept art for the N7 Spectre you're going to be playing as, which I thought was pretty cool. After that, though, we really haven't gotten anything too crazy. We did get that concept art with like Liara next to the tank looking thing, some cool things there, but it's never been anything substantial, right? N7 Days back in the day, we got the remastered trilogy and they showed off the collector's edition, or Mass Effect Andromeda was shown off or announced or whatever. These big things were happening. Now though, it seems like they are just kind of scraping by. There's really not much to say here. The executive producer, Mike Gamble, put out a bit of a post on their blog. It wasn't like a super long post, but it was a post with some italicized words in there. And at the end of it, he said, "Oh, there might be something hidden in this post, but I won't tell you what it is, winky face." But let's talk about what he actually said in the blog post. So on the blog, he said, "Let's start by setting the score straight. The next Mass Effect game is in development. EA and BioWare remain committed to telling more stories in this universe. Currently, the team is heads down and focused exclusively on Mass Effect. We have a lot of the universe to cover, lots of features to build, and lots of romances to figure out. We're excited by what we're building, and we promise you, when we're ready, it'll be a lot of fun to show." So my main gripe with this N7 Day announcement is this is something that we already knew, or something we could already infer, because Dragon Age, the Veilguard, came out about a year or so ago, and you kind of expect them to fully focus on Mass Effect. Now, I was kind of hoping that they were going to fully focus on Mass Effect since they announced that they were working on another Mass Effect, but that's just not what happened. They were actually more so working on this Dragon Age Veilguard game, which came out to kind of a bit of a wet trombone sound. So with Mass Effect being the game that I'm more interested in because I'm more invested in that series than most other game series out there, it's a very personal series to me. The Mass Effect trilogy itself is still and will probably always be my favorite trilogy in gaming, hands down, especially now that the remastered version of the game is out. And Andromeda, I'm kind of mixed on that one, but still, at the end of the day, Mass Effect is a pretty strong series for me. And it's just kind of hard to see the years go by with really nothing being said or nothing coming out. And now with the acquisition of EA, it's hard to know what is exactly what we're even going to get from the studio. So what was the secret message? So essentially, it spelled out a URL, and if you went to it, there was a concept art of the Krogan Civil War, which is fine. Like, I mean, it's concept art at least of a Krogan Civil War, and maybe this means that Rex is gonna, this is gonna be one of the main things for Tachanka, where it's like, okay, Rex is fighting this rogue group of Krogan who have decided to not join your forces, and they have decided to revert back to their old ways before the Genophage and blah blah blah. Could be kind of cool to help out with that. Maybe because you're a Spectre, you can assassinate the leader. I don't know. The concept art is cool though. I like the design of the Krogan armor and the guy in the middle. Like I like it. But at the end of the day, it's really nothing more than what we've gotten before in the past. Concept art. It's not in-game. It's not anything like that. It's not a hint at what we're going to be doing. It's just concept art. They also, I guess there was also something about the Mass Effect TV show that they're making for Amazon Prime. They said that it's going to be an original story. It's not going to be, a TV show based off of a Mass Effect 1, 2, or 3 or Andromeda. It's going to be its own thing inside of the, somewhere kind of inside of the original trilogy, right? But it's still going to be kind of its own thing, its own story. It's not going to, nothing that Commander Shepard does is going to be affected by the story. So I like that, non-canon things. I think that's the best way to do it right now, especially after the Lord of the Rings Rings of Power show tried to be canonized itself. I feel like it should have just been a... Anyway, don't get me started. I'm just, N7 Day used to be something grand and something big, but now it's just kind of like, here you go. Here's a blog post, the first blog post in over a year or a year, and we can't even show the concept art on the page. You have to actually do some secret digging to get the artwork. It's like, come on, man, like, give me a break here. So that is that. N7 Day comes and goes with a fart. All right, I just have an update from last week. I talked about how in Japan, Nintendo lost its patent pursuit for summoning a Pokemon or a monster from a ball to fight for you. And after the whole dust settled on that, I was talking about how the U.S. Patent Office let it go through without any qualms. They said, yep, this is fine. Go. It's now yours, patented. And I was kind of disappointed with the U.S. Patent Office because obviously the Japan Patent Office is a bit more strict and looks into things in more depth. So what happened was John Squires of the U.S. Patent Office said that they need to go back and re-look at Nintendo's Summon Sub-Character and Let It Fight patent. This patent was originally granted with no objection for Nintendo, but because of another patent from Konami in 2002 and Nintendo itself in 2019 that they referenced in their prior art reference section on their on the patent for summoning monsters, they said that it's important to decide whether the claims are patentable, while each raises a substantial new question of patentability. So it seems like because the patent was denied in Japan and there was a whole, uproar, I would say, a lot of people cheering, but also a lot of people going, see, it's not a unique concept anymore. Back in the day, it wasn't even that unique of a concept anyway. I brought up like Digimon and Yu-Gi-Oh! Even, like, there's all these different things that use this summon ability. Like, you capture a monster and you summon it for you, or you get a monster, a card, and you play that card. It's essentially summoning for you in the game concept. So yeah, they're gonna re-examine it, and we'll see what happens. This is all, of course, circling around the whole PAL World legal battle, and this could honestly tip the scales in the U.S. In Japan, there's not really much that Nintendo can do anymore against PAL World. And PAL World has already changed some things to kind of, get to where a bit of a loophole around Nintendo's whole stuff. So in the U.S., this could be a big legal blow for Nintendo against Pal World, where they won't really have any ground to stand on if they can't patent the summoning of a monster from a sphere or a ball or whatever to fight for you. And I've already mentioned this last time that I talked about this. What happens to the games that also have summon mechanics, like Death Stranding 2, or any of the Monster Hunter games, or something like there are companies who are partnered with Nintendo who have summonable monsters that fight for you. I mean, how did Temtem get away with it too? Like that, if the patent is as surface level as summon a character and let them fight for you, Temtem should have been on the chopping block as well. But Nintendo literally turned the other way when the game came out. It even came to Switch. I don't know. Don't ask me. I don't know. But at the end of the day, this is a good thing. The less patents out there in video games, the better, because that means that more companies will be able to use these ideas and make their own thing. If there was a patent for blocks falling from the sky and rotating, and then once they get to the bottom, clearing, we would be in a totally different world. If, let's say, we go back in time, and I mentioned this on the Indie Hangout podcast, Mass Tech Gaming, Pneumatics, and OSK Cronos podcast that I was on for their season finale, if you want to check that out. I mentioned this on their podcast where it's like, well, remember Adventure, which was like the first, kind of like a game where you go around a maze with this little block character, and you just try and find a key, and you try and find a way out. Imagine if they had patented movement in a video game. Imagine if they had patented finding a key and unlocking a door in a video game. Like, we would be in a completely different world for video games. And you might think like, oh, that's ridiculous. This is just the modern day jumping is patented argument. So we'll see what happens, and I'll let you all know what happens in the future. All right, recently Square Enix was under a bit of fire because they said that they want a lot of their quality assurance and debugging work to be done by generative AI, which just doesn't seem like a good idea to me. They essentially want 70% of its workforce in the quality assurance department and debugging departments to be AI assisted, or AI or done by AI. And as I said before, and I'll say this a million times, AI is a great tool. It helps with the busy work. Quality assurance and debugging is not busy work, in my opinion. That is like, hey, we have a finished product that we're testing, and we're seeing what can go wrong, and we're fixing that before it goes out. Using AI for this just feels like a recipe for destruction, or well, maybe not destruction, but disaster. I don't know exactly how this will be used. Maybe the AI will play the game 50 times in an hour, and it'll be able to tell you exactly what happened all 50 instances of the game, right? That's one thing. But if it's just an AI playing, I don't even know, checking the code or what, I don't even know what it's going to do for quality assurance. Debugging, maybe it'll be able to pick out bad code and fix it. But at the end of the day, as I mentioned before, with like EA and the owners of PUBG, Krafton, the workers are already saying like, yeah, the AI messes up. We have to actually fix AI. It's making more work for us when the AI is doing stuff. So it's just not at that point. And Square Enix would like to replace 70% of its workforce with AI by the end of 2027, which is not that far away in the grand scheme of things. And right now where AI is at, it's at a good place, but it's not at a great place, and it's far from a perfect place. So there's going to have to be a lot of testing and a lot of things going wrong in order for something to go right. And at the end of the day, I just feel like if you're taking the human element completely out of something, things are going to go wrong. There's something to be said about creativity in a human. It's not, me personally making this podcast, this is my thoughts, this is my work, this is my art in quotation marks. If you train an AI off of my videos, it's literally just me copied. So how is this debugging and this quality assurance going to work if the AI is being trained by I don't know, a debugging program or something. Maybe I just don't get it. But at the end of the day, it just doesn't seem like a great place to go, especially in quality assurance. Like, I understand maybe writing code, which people have said that they need to fix anyway. But like doing like this kind of work where it's like we got to test it, we need to make sure that there's no bugs, blah blah blah. Like I just feel like AI is it's not going to be a good place to use here. So that is that. Now Square Enix will have to hold off because there is a law being passed in Japan or trying to be passed in Japan about AI that could affect this, but nothing has really happened on that front yet. Yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. This is the third major company in the past couple weeks to say that they want to use AI in a major role, and it's just a bit worrying that these are AA companies: Square Enix, Krafton, EA. That's all AA, which are. Square Enix and EA at least are huge in the industry, putting out multiple games a year sometimes. I don't know. Eventually this will bleed more so into the AAA market. It's already bled its way into indie developers. You get AI slop all the time in the PlayStation Store and on Steam, even though Steam has done a good job of, making sure that like just AI games are being deleted. But there's still a lot of games that use a lot of AI elements, whether it be pictures, music, etc. And it's a bit of a problem inside of the indie universe, and it's starting to become a problem in the AA universe, and I can see it becoming a problem once the AAA catches on as well. Okay, the PlayStation Portal. I haven't talked about this in a while, but it did get a much-needed update this past week. They changed some things with the UI, and then they also added the ability to stream cloud gaming or cloud streaming for PlayStation Plus users. So if you are subscribed to PlayStation Plus Premium subscribers, you will be able to stream 2,800 PS5 titles directly to the PlayStation Portal, including hundreds that are included in PlayStation Extra. On the blog, they said cloud streaming unlocks new ways to play. Enjoy a game side by side with a friend who's using your PS5 under a separate account, or stream your favorite game while someone else watches a movie on the console. Cloud streaming also makes it easier to enjoy PS5 games on the go at a hotel, cafe, friend's place, or anywhere else with a high-speed internet Wi-Fi connection. There's the asterisk there. Since you can keep playing even when your PS5 console is back home, is powered off, or in use by another account. Yeah, that's the funny thing there, right? Hey, you can enjoy this on the go at a hotel, a cafe, a friend's place, anywhere with a high-speed Wi-Fi internet connection. So I did do a test. I don't remember if I talked about this. I took the PlayStation Portal to my car service place because I was getting like an oil change or whatever, and I was like, I'm gonna try this out. I didn't even bring a Switch with me or a magazine. I was like, this should work, right? They have a high-speed internet connection. My bars were all the way full. It was very choppy at times. The audio was cutting in and out, and then eventually it just completely disconnected, and I had to reconnect. And at that point, I was like, well, it's really not worth it. So I just went back to twiddling on my phone. So it's not a perfect system, even on a good connection. So I really can't see myself playing the PlayStation Portal at a cafe, at a McDonald's, anything like that. They also make it sound like it's just so easy. Just stream right from, games right to your console. I just, that's two internet connections. One, the internet connection coming from a satellite or whatever, and then another internet connection going from the internet to your, I don't know how it's going to work, if it's going to work very well when you're outside of your own house. Other features that have been added: 3D audio support, pass lock codes, and a network status screen, which is not too bad. There's also going to be new stuff for the in-game store, and accessibility options for cloud streaming have been added as well. And this is a nice, beefy update, don't get me wrong, but I don't think I'll be using this. One, I don't have PlayStation Plus Premium, so I can't even utilize this feature. And two, I've tried streaming from outside of my house. It just doesn't work. And that's that. The crazy dog is back, barging through the door and making tons of noise. Okay, the same people who released the Rift Master, I think that was last year, They are now making a Guitar Hero on tour style drum set for the PlayStation, Xbox, and PC. They didn't really show too much off about it, but it does have 4 drum pads like the Rock Band setup, but then it also has 3 crash cymbals that kind of remind me of the Guitar Hero drum kit controller. And then there's, of course, a bass pedal as well. And I think that this looks pretty good. It does look very similar to the Guitar Hero style drum kit that came out back in the day. We haven't had a new drum kit available in quite some time. If you want to get a drum kit now, you either have to get like a actual electronic drum kit and set it up to your computer and to play these games with, or you just have to get one from like the latest bundle of Rock Band 4 or whatever. They said that this will work with Rock Band 4, and it probably will work with some like emulated titles like Clone Hero and stuff like that on the PC. They did say that there probably is going to be Fortnite Festival compatibility as well at some point. Yeah, so this is coming from CRKD, who just released the Gibson Les Paul controllers, which do look pretty cool. I was kind of tempted to pick one of those up because I wasn't a huge fan of the Rift Master at the end of the day, but those good Gibson guitars look very nice. You can actually use those on like an old Xbox as well. But the drum kit is in development right now. It's supposed to release some point in 2026. In a press release, they said, driven by the community, no one listens to gamers like the folks at CRKD. Constantly striving to innovate and deliver the very best in collectible, quality gaming hardware, and the all-new drum kit controllers will certainly continue the mission to bring the community what they are craving and bringing the Rock Band back together for a whole new era. We can confirm that the new drum kit controller is currently scheduled to hit in 2026, but other than that, you'll have to wait a little longer to find out further details. Our lips are sealed, but rest assured, we'll update you with more information when the time is right. Now, personally, this does look like a nice controller. It does look pretty high quality, which means that it's probably going to be a bit pricey. If the guitar controller was about $120-something, I could definitely see the drum kit being about $200 or so. And the compatibility from the drum kit is a little bit lesser than the Rift Master guitar or even the Gibson guitars. I just feel like, because like Clone Hero, you got to kind of rely on other people, right? Fortnite Festival does not have drum tracks in it, from what I know. So that there might not even be really a place to use it on Fortnite Festival, even if it does work with it. I guess if it does connect to the PlayStation, you can, or the Xbox, it can at least play Rock Band 4, which recently got, or is going to be delisted. So make sure if you are planning on getting this drum kit, I would definitely recommend just picking up Rock Band 4 just to have some official game to play other than Clone Hero or something like that, because I don't think this will be compatible with Xbox 360 or PlayStation 3. So there you go. But I think it's cool that we are getting another drum kit, or a drum kit in general, and we'll wait to hear more about that when it comes around. All right, the Legend of Zelda movie is now in production, and they are filming in New Zealand, which is probably the best place to film fantasy movies, much like Lord of the Rings did. The Legend of Zelda movie is being filmed in part with Sony, which is kind of crazy. The FTIA website, the Film and Television Industry Alliance, showed that it was from pre-production to in production now, filming in Wellington, New Zealand, which is the same place that they filmed Lord of the Rings, Avatar, and Peter Jackson's King Kong. In the blurb, they said a live-action adaptation of the video game franchise Legend of Zelda follows Link, a young warrior destined to protect the magical kingdom of Hyrule from the forces of darkness. The land is under threat from Ganon, a ruthless warlord who seeks the Triforce, an ancient relic said to grant limitless power. To stop him, Link must embark on a perilous journey, battling monsters, creatures, exploring treacherous dungeons, and solving intricate puzzles to uncover sacred artifacts that can aid him in his quest. Sounds fine. Sounds good. We'll wait to hear more information about that. The film is still set to release on May 7th, 2027. And this will be Nintendo's first foray back into the world of live-action movies. Of course, we had the Mario movie or the Mario Bros. Movie back in the day. What was that, like the 80s or whatever? This will probably, what is this, the first live-action Nintendo movie since then? Probably. I think so. But yeah, that is that. And finally, for the news, Xbox has detailed what the Xbox Game Pass Ultimate players can get from Fortnite Crew Access. This is a perk this is a coming perk for Xbox Ultimate Game Pass Edition. This will be available to players on November 18th, 2025. So what is Fortnite Crew? It's essentially a perk for Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscribers. For more information, please refer to Microsoft Updates to Xbox Game Pass blog post. Thanks. Okay, so what is it? Fortnite Crew subscribers get premium Battle Pass benefits, 1,000 V-Bucks each month, and a monthly crew pack with that's exclusive to members of Fortnite Crew, which would normally cost about $12 a month, but the bonuses will now be given to players who own Game Pass Ultimate. Yeah, I don't know why they didn't just put that. So thanks to PureXbox.com for spelling it out for me, because that would have been a very short and probably deleted section of the podcast there. But yeah, so Fortnite Crew will be available to people who own Xbox Game Pass Ultimate starting November 18th. And it looks like the first like special skin is some sort of like, almost looks like a NASCAR racer or whatever with armor. Kind of, I don't know, maybe a dirt bike guy with armor on. I don't know what to call him. He's a guy. He's a dude. Look at the picture over here. But yeah, that is coming soon, November 18th. You'll be able to actually use the perks that they promised. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the final part of the show, which is what's coming soon. All right, the coming soon section, Kirby AirRiders, the sequel to Kirby Air Rider. The global test demo event is actually officially running right now. November 8th was the first day for this whole thing to start, which started around 3 a.m. Eastern Time and ended at 9 a.m. And actually there's another one coming at 7 p.m. to 1 a.m. as well. This is going to run the 8th and the 9th, which will already be passed by the time this comes out, so who cares? But what you do probably care about is the 15th and 16th of November. There is another technical or beta coming around, and that starts at 3 a.m. and ends at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on the 15th, but also it comes back at 7 p.m. until 1 a.m. the next day on the 15th, and then it starts up again at 10 a.m. on the 16th, and then it goes until 4 p.m. on the 16th as well. So what you'll be able to access during the beta, you'll be able to access lessons, which will give you a basic control and techniques. You'll be able to play offline for this. Air Ride, which is the thrilling racing mode. You'll be able to race on 3 different tracks: Floria Fields, Wave Flow, and Wave Flow Waters, and Mount Amber Falls. Those are going to be the 3 places you can race on. These modes will also be able to play offline if you want to. And then City Battle. You'll be able to try out a scrimmage in Skya with up to 15 players online. There will be no offline mode for this in the beta. You'll also be able to use the paddock to set up a lobby with your friends if you want to invite your friends. How do you play the global test? Just go to the eShop and download the global test beta. And you can actually download that starting now. And I believe you can keep it on your console until the 15th comes around if you want to play it again. So there you go. And of course, the little asterisk is you need to have a Nintendo subscription in order to play online with the game, of course. Yeah, hey, I don't know if I'm like, because I'm already sold on the game. I think it looks great. I think it's going to play great. So I'm just going to wait for the full game to release. Which that does come out on the 20th, so it's not even that far away at this point. And I have Age of Imprisonment to tide me over if I want to play a Nintendo game right now, or Pokemon, I guess. But speaking of Pokemon, Legends ZA, the Mega Dimension DLC, is going to come out in December 10th, 2025. In the press or in the description, it says, just when Team MZ's efforts seem to have restored peace to Lumos City, something strange begins to happen. Mysterious distortions start forming all around town. You'll also meet a mysterious young girl named Ansha, who is accompanied by the mischief Pokemon Hoopa. There's extra Mega Evolutions in this one, including the new Mega Raichu X and Mega Raichu Y. There will be plenty of Hoopa content for the people who love Hoopa, along with other Mega forms of Baxcalibur, Chemecho, Dynasty, and Meganium. And it will be $30 for this DLC. So there better be a lot of content in this if they're putting it out for $30. And also it better be some content that I won't be missing from the main game, with this DLC being so close to the release of the game. So yeah, that's coming out soon to the people who want that. Metroid Prime 4 Beyond also got a new trailer this past week. And once again, I will reiterate, when Samus is walking around these moody interiors and some exteriors, it looks fantastic. It looks amazing. But as soon as she gets on that goddamn motorcycle and goes into this desert area, I'm going to pause this and talk about it. Yeah, it just looks so... It just looks so bland, and I'm hoping that there's not going to be that much content for the motorcycle. But seeing as it's becoming a part of the, it's an amiibo, and it's becoming a large part of the promotional stuff. I just want to play those more tightly made corridor sections and stuff like that. Obviously, I don't want to judge it too harshly before the game comes out. It's coming out in December. So I will hold off any more scathing criticisms about a trailer until the game actually does release. But that is my one concern about the game, is this motorcycle and these open desert areas that just look so flat and plain, and it kind of reminds me of like Sonic Frontiers, with its kind of like pop-in and stuff like that. So hopefully I'm wrong and it's amazing, and I can't wait to play it. I still can't wait to play it. I think it still looks good. The latest trailer on Nintendo's YouTube channel looks good. Looks very good. So, there you go. Kind of in the same vein of things, Darwin's Paradox. This is a game coming from Konami, where you play as like a little octopus guy inside of a big ocean. Kind of reminds me of some of those 2D / like 3D kind of atmospheric horror games like Little Nightmares and stuff like that. It does kind of remind me of that a little bit because of the play style being kind of like a 3D environment, 2D plane kind of thing going on. The game looks great though. This is one of those games that I am very interested in, and it reminds me of, I don't know, just like some real silly shit that I used to love when I was a kid, and I still do love. I still do love the silly games, and this is going to be one of them. They did announce that it won't be coming until 2026, so we have to wait a little bit longer for that. But yeah, this is definitely on the top of my wish list right now. Probably one of my most anticipated games right now. Darwin's Paradox, right next to Mouse PI for Hire. All right, the Black Ops 7 preload and release times have been revealed, along with Rogue Xbox Ally details for the game as well. So the game will be able to be preloaded on November 10th, starting at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This will be for all platforms, whether it be on Xbox, PlayStation, or Steam and Battle.net. So, you can get it preloaded and get it ready to go. The game will officially release at midnight, November 14th. Xbox rollout will be staggered for regions, so New Zealand will start at 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then it will go from there. On the Call of Duty blog, it said players can optimize things early for visual fidelity on PC. There will be a wide range of hardware support settings, deep customization with 800 plus options for characters to customize graphics, gameplay, input devices, interfaces, and more. There will be display optimization for 4K to 1440p and 1080p. Standard screens and ultra-wide is supported at launch. Cutting-edge upscaling for the AMD FSR 4. Call of Duty PC benchmark tools. You'll be able to use this to make sure that the game is performing at your standards. Ricochet anti-cheat will also be installed. This is the TPM 2.0 and secure boot. Subframe mouse polling, increased mouse precision for aiming, and the RGB IQ dynamic RGB information will be supported for Crosshair devices as well. As for the ROG Xbox Ally, the game has been fully tuned for various Windows handhelds, specifically including the Rogue Xbox Ally and the Xbox Ally X. They've implemented various techniques to ensure that the Rogue Ally versions will feature great visuals and smooth performance, along with other quality of life features right out of the box or right from the download. So, yeah, there you go. That's Black Ops 7 coming soon. Speaking of Microsoft, Halo Infinite is getting its final major content update, which is arriving later this month in November. In a press release, they said, with multiple Halo titles in development, we'll need our whole team's combined forces to deliver new experiences with the same passion and care that our community has given us. While we remain committed to supporting Halo Infinite on the road ahead, Operation Infinite is the last major content update currently planned. And Halo Studios has just announced Operation Infinite being the final thing before they start focusing on Halo Campaign Evolved. What will Operation Infinite bring us? So there's going to be 2 times career rank, 2 times Spartan points, 100 tier Operation Pass, a new ranked map, new Husky raid map, and 200 plus new items to exchange in the store. And all this will, of course, lead up to probably the launch of Halo Campaign Evolved, which comes out sometime in 2026. So there you go. I remember playing Halo Infinite when it first came out in 2021. It actually made the top 15 games of that year. Probably wouldn't make it nowadays if I redid. Actually, I did redo that list. And no, I didn't. I didn't redo the list. It probably wouldn't nowadays. It's just one of those things where it's like, I don't know why I did the extra 5 there. Probably just for the contest for the year. And probably all 5 of those games that I put at the top 15, minus maybe the Lost in Random game would probably not be on there anymore. And that's just the way it is sometimes. But, yeah, I mean, I had my fun with Halo Infinite. I thought the campaign was fine. I mean, a lot of people shit on it pretty heavily. I thought the open world stuff was pretty fun. I mean, I can't lie. The multiplayer felt good. Didn't feel as good as, like, the old days, but still I thought it felt good. Played a pretty much, fair amount of time with that. But, yeah, Halo Infinite's kind of unfortunate to see it finally getting its sunsetting phase here. But at the same time, it's cool to see that there's multiple Halo titles in development, so not just the remake of Halo Campaign Evolved. So maybe that means that we will be getting the next mainline Halo game somewhere within the next couple of years, or maybe even a reveal that there is one coming this year. So keep your eyes open. I would say keep your eyes open at the Game Awards specifically. I feel like that is where they will announce something. All right, the classic tank game called Tokyo Wars comes out from Arcade Archives. This is already available now. It is available for $17 on the PS5 and $15 on the PS4. For some reason, there is a slight difference there. This is a arcade classic game from 1996 from Bandai Namco. In a press release, they said Tokyo Wars is an action shooter released by Namco Limited, current Bandai Namco Entertainment Inc. in 1996. Join the tank unit of Green Force or the White Force and engage in battle through realistic city streets, destroyed or to be destroyed. The war for Tokyo begins now. I guess this game got a spiritual successor on the Wii U called Tank Tank Tank. But apparently that was not critically well received, so oops, oh well. But I thought, from the gameplay that they showed off in the trailer, I thought this looked kind of fun, very classic kind of arcade-style game. Maybe once it goes down in price, I will pick it up. As of right now, though, it's a bit pricey for what it is. These Arcade Archives games usually do come out a bit pricey, and then they get a sale, and it's, like $5, and that feels more like a justified price for me, personally. But yeah, that is that. Tokyo Wars. Coming to Switch soon is Hitman Absolution. We do finally have a release date for that. The Switch 1 version is going to be released on November 13th for $30. This is a game from 2012 that does not seem to be getting too much of a graphical update or anything like that. I just feel like $30 for this is just a bit of a weird thing. It's supposed to come to Switch 2 at some time in 2025 too. So we'll see when that comes out. But yeah, the Switch 1 version will be coming soon. I just feel like this is an egregious price tag for such an old game that you can already get on Steam at the same time for like $10 at some points. I just feel like, yeah, this is a bit of a steep price for a game like this. I mean, it's a good game. I'm sure it's a very good game. I think this is one of the more highly rated Hitman experiences. But at the same time, $30 for a game that came out in 2012 at this point, just kind of rubs me the wrong way, I'll be honest. Speaking of Switch 2 editions, though, Overcooked Switch 2 edition does have a release date now. This was originally shown off during a Nintendo Direct. So if you own the Switch 1 version and you want to upgrade to the Switch 2 version, it's just going to be a $10 price tag for that. If you buy the Switch 2 version outright, it's $30 on the eShop with a 20% discount running on the storefront right now until the game comes out, which the game does come to Switch 2 on November 6th. Oh, actually, it's already out. November 6th. I thought it was 16. My eyes played tricks on me. But yes, if you want to check this out, it does come with all the previous DLCs for the game. You can also transfer save data from the original edition of the game to Switch 2 if you want to. What's the main reason for getting the Switch 2 edition? Higher frame rate, and you can also use the Switch camera function to have your face above your character. Doesn't seem like much, but Overcooked is a good game series, and it's definitely fun to play with friends. So I would definitely recommend checking that out if you have a group of friends you want to play with. And now I'm going to talk about ArcRiders. This is they did show off the roadmap for the game that's going to essentially fill out the rest of 2025. So ArcRiders came out this past week, right? Well, I guess it was about 2 weeks ago now. And it's a multiplayer PvPvE experience. I just didn't feel like spending the money to pick it up right now. Once it goes on sale, I'll probably check it out. I've mostly been just watching Angry Joe play it, and I mean, it looks good. But once again, I'm just not really huge on these extraction shooter type games. But they did announce the roadmap for the rest of 2025, and in November there will be a new map called Stella Montis, along with a new community event, new Arc, Matriarch, and Shredder types, new gameplay items, and new quests on the map. And then in December, they're calling this next update Cold Snap. You'll get the Snowfall map condition, along with the Flickering Flames event, Expedition Departure windows, new Raider decks, and a new quest as well. So just a few small things for the end of the year, and then, of course, I'm sure they'll be supporting this game for quite some time after the year is up. So yeah, I mean, let me know what you think of ArcRiders, whether it be in the comments below or on my Discord. Is it worth trying out? Is it really that big of a step up from the other extraction shooters that have come out in the past? Let me know. I would appreciate that. And then finally, for the coming soon section here, we have 5 games leaving Xbox Game Pass in November of 2025. And these games are all leaving console, PC, and cloud platforms. So on November 15th, Blacksmith Master, Football Manager 2024, Frostpunk, Spirit T, and Stalker 2 Heart of Chernobyl are all leaving the store on November 15th. Stalker 2 is kind of an interesting one. That was a pretty big one to come to the service. Football Manager 2024 makes sense because I believe 25 is currently on the store right now. Other than that, the other ones I don't really know too much about. Frostpunk is a city building manager. Blacksmith Master is probably like a blacksmith simulator. Spirit T, I feel like that's one where you're like a mouse or something who owns a something. I don't know. I don't know what that one is. But if you want to play any of those games, play them now before they're gone. Okay, let's go ahead and do the closing here. We'll go ahead and play. What's that screenshot, or what did I call it? I don't even remember. I'm going to show you a zoomed in screenshot from a game I talked about today. And if you know the game, let me know either down below in the comments below on YouTube or Spotify, or come over to the Discord and say it in the Ferret64 section, and I will give you a super reaction on the Discord. If you comment below on YouTube or Spotify, I will give you a heart and a congratulations. Let's go ahead and view today's screenshot right now. All right, if you know what that screenshot is from, let me know. We're still testing this out. Not as fun as the music one, but more safe for the channel, that's for sure. I appreciate everyone for listening, though, to this episode of the podcast very much. I know that these have been going on for a bit longer than I have anticipated, these past few episodes, but I do appreciate everyone who has listened all the way through. I would very much appreciate a like on the YouTube version or a rating on Spotify or a review on Apple Podcast. Very much would appreciate that. It all helps the channel and the podcast grow. If you want to check out the other podcasts I do, there's one called Film Freaks with a Z at the end. We talk about movies. The latest episode is about Dune Part 2. We were joined by Obi-Wan Kenobi of the Discord for that conversation. And the next week's episode is going to be about Monty Python and the Holy Grail, which will be out next Friday. It's a bi-weekly podcast. Also, Fubar Ferret still have episodes of that coming out monthly. The latest episode is available right now, featuring a gas station tire inflator. What could that be about? Tune in to find out. Everything else is all at YemmytheFerret, YouTube, Twitch, YouTube VODs channel, etc. I'm also streaming on YouTube and Twitch at the same time right now, so you can check me out on either place, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. We are finishing up Crisis 3 on Monday and moving on to the next game of Bunger Month, which is Lollipop Chainsaw Repop, which should be Tuesday. I'm expecting that to be Tuesday to start that. All that and more. If you're a part of the Discord, you can come over and give me a recommendation for Bunger Month. Just an FYI. I am YemmytheFerret. Thank you so much for listening once again. I will talk at you next week. So long. The Ferret64 Podcast is owned and edited by YemmytheFerret. Sound clips included during the podcast were made by YemmytheFerret. The Ferret64 logo was made by Player2P2. The intro and outro music was made by Gail Laliot on Fiverr. News sources include PushSquare.com, NintendoLife.com, and PureXbox.com. All opinions are my own. Thank you for listening.